Maya and I were identical in every way except morals. For 23 years, we shared everything: clothes, friends, even boyfriends occasionally. What I didn't know was that she'd been sharing my social security number too. I discovered it when I was denied for my dream apartment. The landlord looked at me like I was complete scum. "Ma'am, your credit score is 340. You have $47,000 in unpaid debts across 17 different accounts." My blood turned to ice. I'd never owned a credit card in my life. That night, I pulled my credit report and nearly vomited. Maya had opened 17 accounts in my name over 3 years. She'd bought a BMW, funded her master's degree, taken luxury vacations, and apparently lived off cash advances, while I worked double shifts at a diner to save money for my future. The worst part? She'd been living in a luxury downtown loft with marble countertops, while I shared a cramped studio apartment with 2 roommates who left dirty dishes everywhere. When I confronted her the next morning, she didn't even have the decency to deny it. "I needed the money," she said casually, filing her perfectly manicured nails. "Besides, we're twins. What's mine is yours, right? I figured you'd understand." "You destroyed my entire financial future, Maya." She shrugged like I'd complained. "About borrowing a sweater. You'll figure it out. You always do. You're the responsible one, remember?" For 6 agonizing months, I tried fixing it through legal channels: fraud reports, police statements, credit disputes, lawyer consultations. Maya had been incredibly careful. She knew my social security number, my mother's maiden name, my first pet's name. Everything needed to convince banks and credit companies that she was actually me. The fraud investigators told me twin identity theft was nearly impossible to prove without video evidence of her physically making the purchases. It's essentially her word against yours, and she's covered her tracks well. Maya got engaged that fall to Richard, a successful investment banker who thought he was marrying sweet, financially responsible Maya, the same Maya who was planning their elaborate dream wedding with my stolen money. I found out about the engagement when she sent me a formal invitation with gold embossing. "I want you as my maid of honor," she said, over coffee, beaming. "We're family, and family should celebrate together." That's when the realization hit me like a freight train. Legal justice wasn't coming fast enough, but there were other kinds of justice available. I started planning my revenge. Richard had absolutely no idea who he was really marrying. Maya had crafted this perfect false image, told him she was completely debt-free, had excellent credit, and worked as a volunteer coordinator at a nonprofit, instead of admitting she'd never held a real job longer than 3 months. For the next 6 months, I became the supportive sister she thought I'd always be. Helpful, involved in every single wedding detail. I offered to handle all the vendors since Maya was so busy with her demanding nonprofit work. I insisted on paying deposits up front to help with their cash flow situation. Richard thought it was incredibly generous and kept praising Maya for having such a wonderful, giving sister. What he didn't know was that I was methodically building an airtight paper trail. Every single vendor contract I signed included detailed liability clauses that I'd carefully crafted with the help of a lawyer friend. Every payment came with extensive documentation clearly stating the purchaser's identity and complete responsibility for any damages or unpaid balances. I made absolutely certain that my name appeared nowhere as the financially responsible party. Maya, meanwhile, was living it up like some kind of socialite princess. She'd started using my name for everything again: expensive spa treatments, designer dress fittings, jewelry shopping, even a weekend trip to Paris for her bachelorette party with 6 bridesmaids, all charged to credit cards in my name that she'd somehow managed to keep active despite my numerous fraud reports. Documented absolutely everything: photos of her physically using my credit cards at restaurants and stores, screenshots of her social media accounts showing off purchases I'd never made, bank statements proving I was working overtime shifts just to afford my basic living expenses, while she charged thousands to my accounts daily. I created spreadsheets tracking every fraudulent purchase, photographed receipts she'd carelessly thrown away, and even hired a private investigator to follow her for a week. The investigator's report was damning. Maya would start her days at expensive coffee shops, charging $15 lattes to my American Express card. She'd spend hours at high-end boutiques trying on clothes that cost more than my monthly rent. Weekly manicures, luxury spas, designer outfits with tags still attached, all on my stolen cards. Meanwhile, my own social media showed the reality of my life. Pictures of me in my diner uniform, exhausted after double shifts, posts about choosing. Between groceries and gas money, photos of my tiny apartment with hand-me-down furniture. The contrast was stark and infuriating. 3 weeks before the wedding, I met with Richard's best friend, Jake, a corporate lawyer, and laid out everything. His face grew progressively paler. "Jesus Christ," he whispered. "She's been systematically defrauding you for years. This isn't just identity theft, this is organized financial abuse, and now she's about to defraud Richard in an even bigger way." I showed him Maya's completely fabricated employment records and financial statements. Richard thinks she makes $85,000 a year doing non-profit work. He believes she has $30,000 in personal savings. He's planning their entire financial future based on these lies. Then I revealed the most damaging piece: recent credit applications where Maya had listed Richard's income to qualify for even more credit cards in my name. She's planning to destroy my credit even further using his financial information as collateral. After they're married, the financial damage will increase exponentially. Shared assets, shared debt, shared legal responsibility for everything she's done. Jake closed the folder. "This is criminal conspiracy. She's setting him up to be her next victim while continuing to destroy your life. We spent the next 2 hours developing a strategy." "The key is timing," Jake explained. "We need to present this when she can't deny it, can't run, and can't manipulate the situation when she's trapped and has to face the truth in front of everyone who matters to her." "The wedding," I said immediately. He agreed. We refined the plan over several more meetings. Jake would position Richard's family and key guests in advance. I'd handle the documentation. We'd coordinate the timing to ensure maximum impact, while giving Richard the information he needed to protect himself legally. Jake also connected me with an FBI contact, Agent Sarah Chen, who specialized in identity theft cases. She reviewed my evidence and confirmed Maya's actions constituted multiple federal crimes. "Twin identity theft is particularly difficult to prosecute," she said, "but you've documented this incredibly well. The evidence is overwhelming." She agreed to attend the wedding as backup. The week before the wedding, Maya's spending reached insane levels. $3,000 for dress alterations, $2,000 for hair and makeup trials, $500 for shoes, $800 for lingerie, even a $1,200 bridesmaid spa day, all charged to my stolen cards. The rehearsal dinner alone cost $4,000 on my visa. She gave a speech about family and love while literally stealing from me to pay for it. I smiled and applauded, knowing that in less than 24 hours, her world would collapse completely. The morning of the wedding, Maya stood in her $3,000 designer dress, charged to my Amex, completely unaware that her perfect day was about to implode. At 2:30 p.m., when the ceremony was supposed to begin, Richard stood at the altar with a microphone instead of waiting for his bride. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice echoing through the chapel, "I need to make an important announcement before we proceed. It has come to my attention through irrefutable evidence that my fiancée has been living an elaborate lie, not just to me, but to everyone gathered here today." He held up the thick folder of credit reports and financial documents. "Maya has systematically stolen her twin sister's identity for 3 years. She's accumulated nearly $50,000 in fraudulent debt in her sister's name. She's never held the non-profit job she claimed to have. Everything about our relationship and this wedding has been built on criminal fraud." The chapel erupted in gasps. Guests turned to stare at Maya, who stood frozen in the aisle. "Richard, please, let me explain," she begged, walking toward him. "The woman you think you know as Maya has been committing federal crimes that would have made me an unwitting accomplice after marriage," he said firmly. "I will not legally bind myself to a criminal." I stood and gave Maya an ultimatum. "Confess everything publicly right now, or I signal the FBI agent waiting outside to arrest you in front of everyone you know." What followed was the most complete and humiliating confession I'd ever witnessed. Maya admitted to everything: the stolen credit, the forged signatures, the lies about her job and income. She described how she'd memorized my personal information, intercepted my mail, and deliberately ruined my credit to cover her tracks. By 5 p.m., the venue was empty except for security and an $800 wedding cake that would never be served. The catering staff presented Maya with a bill for $23,000. Now her personal responsibility, since the credit cards were fraudulent. As I loaded evidence boxes into my car, Maya confronted me in the parking lot, still in her wedding dress. "This is all your fault," she hissed. "No, Maya," I said calmly. "You ruined your own wedding when you decided to build your life on lies." Agent Chen approached and placed Maya under arrest. I watched as they read her rights and escorted her away, still in her designer gown. The investigation moved quickly. Maya's crimes were so well documented that she pleaded guilty to multiple federal charges. She received 18 months in prison and was ordered to pay me $67,000 in restitution. Richard married his college girlfriend. The next spring, someone with her own legitimate income and credit history. I got my credit restored, my name cleared, and my financial future back on track. Maya was released 8 months ago and now works at a grocery store, living in our parents' basement. Every month, she sends me $200 with a note. "I'm sorry for what I did to you. It's not enough to undo the damage, but it's a start. Sometimes I see her at the store. She always looks away. Maya destroyed my credit, but I destroyed her entire future. And honestly, I sleep just fine knowing justice was served, even if I had to serve it myself."